Okay, so anybody want to open up and just tell me what it is you got from last week's session? What stood out most for you from last week? Okay, so again, unless there's something going on with my,
No, so I can say something. I'll say.
okay, sure.
So um the gentleman that came on,
Zakir.
look, yes. Um, he just reiterated that branding is everything. Um, Having a good brand, um, consistency with your brand, um, and that he also was willing to be a resource to assist.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so, um, branding is what you got from it, the importance of it, understanding the brand,
Yeah,
understanding
and
the business.
understanding your business and understanding your brand and understanding um, how to execute what you know your branding and what your product is.
Okay, okay, very good, very good. Um, Anything else? How about in the way of the actual coursework? Anybody?
Well, Dr. Cynthia, I can't recall um what he was talking about specifically. Like I can't remember the names of the companies, but he did give us examples of how like he showed us different examples of how companies or organizations, because one was a business and one was a nonprofit. I remember that part. And him showing us like how their like what they present on their website was aligned to like their mission, um and their like culture in terms of like company and organizational culture. I do remember that part.
Okay, okay. And then you also, in your actual discussion of the coursework, you discussed the 19 channels, I believe, or you selected from those channels or were given
Yes.
an assignment to
Yes.
that. Did you find that to be
Yes.
helpful for you?
It was helpful because so the way it was done was like broken down in by groups, and so different groups focused on different parts, and then some people examples they were able to show how it could connect to other co-ops, like other co-ops
Stop.
and their missions and stuff.
Mhm.
So it was helpful to get, I know, like hearing about all 19, and then they gave us as individual groups this ability to think about like how we could use some of those on our own. And then it was also nice to be given examples of how we could use it.
Okay, excellent. Well, this is our agenda for this evening. We've already done our connecting exercise. The question that we had. Um, when do you feel most like you? We will discuss this evening also the management and governance, and this will be after you make your presentations on your financial story. There'll be a 3-minute break, and then we'll get more into management and governance really after that break. We will, all of this information you see in terms of assessing where you are, this may have to go into next week's session. Remember when we got behind a little bit a few weeks ago, we were trying to compress things. But for the purpose of tonight, I think we'll spend most of the time on governance and the co-op manual. Excuse me, the co-op map. All right. So, who wants to go first to present? Which team? How about the two Morgans? Since you spoke out first, we can have Woodhill first, followed by followed by Third Ward. And then after Third Ward, we'll hear from Southern B and Crenshaw. How about that?
Okay, that works.
Okay, great. All right, so again, you have
Um,
3 minutes. I'm gonna do my best to time you. 3 minutes. Let me get my little timer going here. Yeah. All right. Let me know when you're gonna start, and then you'll probably hear a little beep go off when your 3 minutes is over. If you're over,
All right,
okay?
I think we're ready.
All right, sounds good.
So, this is kind of at a glance a look at some of our financials. We're building out kind of a comprehensive model, so it's still a work in progress, but to give a sense, we plan to have 4 revenue streams. So the laundromat itself, the washers and dryers, also wash and fold service, a cafe where we'll sell food and drink, and then a community space, which will come with a rental fee. Startup costs at this point are estimated to be about $835,000, but that's not including a few things. So the cost of water setup fees, and then also the specific cafe equipment and furniture technology for the community space. Also in this chart, the boxes that are in orange are kind of very rough estimates that we still want to do some research and get more exact quotes on, versus the blue is more estimates that we're more confident in the pricing on those.
So
And then
this is the portion where you can only see the snapshot of how we are going to calculate our annual financials. Behind this, there are formulas of how we're going to create revenue from those 4 items. We have that broken down in a different portion of this workbook. So that gives us our revenue. Also, we get our expenses from those startup costs. They're also broken down in different units of expenses. We put in here we still plan on, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we plan to have a loan, so that's also in here. In our first year, budget is 1.3 million. In our second year, sorry, not revenue, is 1.3 million, and our expenses is 1.6. What else should I say?
yeah, so I guess in the first year, what makes us profitable is just that we're receiving that loan within that year, or like that's our plan, is to receive that loan. And then it's not until like the second year, 2027, that we would have a profit without receiving a loan, and we still have the loan payment. And then the assumptions that we still want to test, like 2 big ones, the wash and fold pricing. We haven't done really a survey specifically about wash and fold, so kind of understanding who's most interested in this service, what are people willing to pay. And we've talked about doing a 2-tier pricing model for this, so just kind of testing, are there really folks that would pay a higher price point for that?
You're at
And
your
then
3 minutes, by the way.
okay, and then permits,
you-
just researching what's required and the process and price of that.
Mhm.
That's it.
The next page, do you have the next page? That goes into
It's just extra. Yep.
page number 2. Well, this actually is how it's part of the breakdown of the revenue and how we're calculating our revenue and our expenses.
Okay, did you use the formulas that we shared with you with the sheets?
So
You
this
know,
is
the financials, or is this something you already had?
This is something that we are currently working on.
You're currently using, okay, as a reference. Okay, so, well, what questions do you have? What questions would the, other team members have based on what you've seen, shared with you?
Where does it show your EDB TMA? Is that on here?
So I honestly, unless Morgan Bulger understands what those acronyms are, I would need you to say that in another way.
Cynthia, do you want to explain that part from class?
Yeah, that would be your earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. So, in terms of breaking down, what you have, there's some other expenses, in other words, that need to be included in here. I guess I'm looking for the same information on your chart.
So can you repeat what you said again? It's the earnings before interest?
Yes, and taxes and depreciation. The earnings before you actually have the interest, your taxes, and depreciation.
And the cost of goods.
Yeah.
Was the cost of goods, which, can you go back to the big
Yeah.
chart? I'm trying
Yeah.
to see where the COGs are. Where's your COGs on here?
See, she's using, that's why.
Yeah, it's set
Cost
up
of
a little
goods
bit
and
different.
services.
So some of the materials are in this, like on the right hand column, there's all these different expenses for ongoing expenses. But some of those are not materials. So that also includes like the permits are in here, insurance in here. So I think we have it set up differently than maybe the formulas that you had provided.
Okay,
What-
all right, go ahead. Was that a you, Alita, or someone else speaking?
Oh, yeah, I just was wondering what, because I also have a different Excel sheet from 3 different other groups. So I did theirs and just switched my information. Which organization had you to do it this way, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, we're working with, it's a group in Cleveland called Jumpstart. And really, I think we're still at the point of making it make sense. Because the first time we plugged all the numbers in, it wasn't even profitable. So then trying to do research and play around to just get to a point of having a plan that is not losing money every year. But I think there's definitely different ways to set this up, and we're still learning. So interested if there's a different way that would make more sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, we can work, well, certainly we can work with that. The one that we shared with you is really a simplified version of how you can calculate for, of your projections, for sure. But the thing about it is, you said something interesting, and this is the discussion I had earlier with another team, and that is sometimes the numbers will reflect that you will have a loss. So that may be, then you have to question, a number of things like, is my pricing right? Is this something that the market can even bear, in terms of, what we're offering? Are we lowballing? Are we being realistic? So these are the tough questions that we ask around the numbers. And are some of these numbers fluid? Do they change over time, over months or whatever? So rather than keep that in mind, because what we're going to do is hear from everyone, and we can again arrange to have meetings with you Did you meet with anyone this past week? Will, by chance?
I
Because
think
again, I
so.
had to change my whole, beg your pardon?
I don't think we did.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, yeah, we'll be glad to, share some information that might be useful for you as you're moving through this, because this is a work in progress. But at the same time, as you're setting things up, these are some real costs that you're plugging in to help you, make sure that your trajectory isn't going the right place. And if not, then again, asking those tough questions. But so what we're going to do is just move on to our next groups, because we have 4 other groups, I think, to hear from. Thank you for being first. We will put information out there again for, separate meetings, times to do that for this week. And again, this past week, I apologize if I had to miss a meeting and whatever, my life took that unexpected turn. All right. All right, who did I say was next?
Third ward.
I just want to say thank you for sharing. I know that, talking about money and finances presents some trauma, and it's
yeah,
just hard. So
it
good
is.
job. I learned a
Yeah.
lot, and it was great, and I appreciate the vulnerability and the courage.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to thank everybody for that, because, finance is, I know for me, numbers and all that, it is traumatizing, as you said, Asada, and I've experienced it. I've had a number of cohorts who have also come to this point, and they say, wow, I need some help, I need some help around these things. And then as time goes on, because they are involved in the day-to-day, just like a good example would be Sustainergy, where these guys, all, came from wherever, started their business, as worker co-ops, worker owners, excuse me. And as worker owners, every week, just looking at these numbers and plugging them in, they have become more comfortable with them. So whenever I do the co-op tours, that's one of the businesses I really like going to, because these guys all say, hey, I knew nothing about numbers until I became owner here. And I became very interested. And then once I could see how this money was moving, and that's what we're looking at. How is money moving through your cooperative? How does money move? We're going to talk a little bit later about, how does, we've talked about how power moves, and certainly how information moves as well through the co-op. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, I do think we have a very complex, and how we're thinking about it, or how we have started to think about it is very complex. And just kind of how do we break it down kind of has been, I won't say, I don't want to totally say a challenge. Some of us on the co-op is better with the actual financials. And we're not always all able to get together at one time, so I do think that it's a work in progress, and it just has it's been learning for some of us. And so I don't find it trauma. I really find it exciting as we learn to see how it actually takes to build this business. But I do appreciate the support from Co-op Sensing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good, good. We also appreciate you, for sure. Okay, so we're going to hear now from Third Ward, I believe.
Great. Okay. Yeah, so we are a shared alliance cooperative. And so we're looking at how to provide services to childcare providers that help support them in creating spaces of like high quality childcare. And so looking at back end services, as well as curriculum services, food services, potentially transportation services, things like that. And so we broke down, so first of all, disclaimer, yes to the learning curve. We are newer to this than some folks in this space. And so we definitely spent a lot of time just ensuring that we were all on the same page and understanding what we were actually putting down so that we're collectively building our capacity to progressively do some of the more complicated, modeling. So, okay, we broke down our services into 3 potential categories. All of this was us kind of hypothesizing about different streams of revenue. But none of these are things that we have like actually committed to. So first we have bookkeeping and accounting. So providing that as a back office support. And what we did was we did our cost of goods first, and then from there decided the price. In this case, the cost of goods is higher than the price of this product of bookkeeping and accounting, but we figured that was okay. One, because quantity wise, we feel like it'll work out if we have like a minimum of 2 providers that we're supporting at the same time, because some of these costs won't actually duplicate. And then also because this is 25% of our sales, so it wouldn't be the majority of where sales is coming from, and profit from another product could potentially help to offset that difference. And so in terms of the quantities, we have no idea actually. And so that's one of our assumptions in terms of what is a risky assumption that we still need to define. Right now we're working on putting together a survey so that we can have more data around how many potential providers we will be serving. So this was just us with a best guess, giving the number of new providers we'd be serving each month, and with a kind of expectation that during the summer months, because school is out, there might be an increase of potential providers.
3 minutes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So we did the same thing with curriculum support. We have a little bit more of a bigger margin or a profit margin, which again, hopefully that would offset any losses for the bookkeeping support. And then our third product was or service rather, was food, which we didn't actually have the time to get into. But yeah, that's where we are in our financial story thus far.
Okay, what questions do you have? All right, so in earlier discussions, I think this was one of the a team that expressed a concern about the expenses being more than the revenue. That can happen, especially when you're starting up business, so it may take a while. But again, it also can help you to determine what the pricing looks like. It can help you to determine how you create more income. Excuse me, I have all this sunlight coming in. But that's good. Thank you for sharing. Third Ward, we appreciate you.
I also like that it seems like their income streams seem to be pretty balanced, and I've heard that that's good, so that it doesn't sound like they're depending too heavily on one stream more so than another.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Or, yeah, yeah. As those products and services, as you have more, and then you can maybe shift a little bit in terms of where you're going to concentrate. Yeah, that's good.
And this is my group, and I did not help out. I just want to say this is my group, and I did not help out, and they did a great presentation. But I do want to say that I think the trauma for me is that the realization that, and I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this, but like the nervousness, like, is this a business? Can we bring in enough revenue? Can we do that? You know what I mean? So I think this is a great exercise, because I think it's like every passion project we have may not be a revenue producing project, business. And so it's that kind of tension point between aspiration and reality for me.
Right. And the thing about financials too, well, it's not just the financials. It's going to be the total picture, because you have to have the right people, working the skills and so forth. So, and I'm saying this as a former business owner myself. I mean, I had a business that failed, and I know, the more I know why, it failed. It wasn't, I mean, the financials are part of it, but there were some other things there too that weren't in place or properly vetted, or properly attended to, for that matter, that contributed to that business not, getting the revenue that we had anticipated or hoped for. And
You all did a really good job also. And I think the only thing I would say, not so much on the numbers, but on the presentation, is start off, I know you want to say, some of you all are doing this better than me, and we haven't done this before. So instead of starting off that way, maybe, just come strong in there and not apologize for anything that right in the beginning. That's the only thing I would say is, for the presentation that we're going to have to do when they're going to grade us, don't apologize for who you're not. Always speak power to, proof to power that you've done your work, due diligence, and you're doing your best. That's the best thing I would say, is just try to start off in that way instead of apologizing first, if that makes sense.
that's great advice.
Of course, yeah, I'll take that advice. My brain was just already in we are in a learning curve, and I did want to speak to that, but I do second that. I will take that advice.
We wouldn't have necessarily known that, had you not said it, but that's fine. I think it's to Alita's point. Let's start off strong, come up confidently, because all of this will transfer to that pitch. Yeah, this is practice towards it. All right, and this is also the opportunity to for you to ask questions, as you will need to talk about or justify your numbers, where you see yourself financially. Do I need to put that criteria back up there too? Maybe I'll find that. I'll find
Yeah,
that.
can I just say this? I think also for one of our co-ops, we knew we weren't going to be profitable, right? And that's when we thought about philanthropic support, right? Saying to funders, like, knowing what we needed to do to close that gap, and for how long we were going to need that, that support until you get to sustainability. So I think also, to your point, just knowing, the question is, during this time, whether it's loan, whether it's a grant with a nonprofit partner, right? This is how we're going to take care of that gap in resources.
And also remember, like, for those of us like ourselves, Pair Above the Sower, we're in here with you. There is no big I's or little T's, meaning we started in 2016. So we have that year's PowerPoint presentation and Excel sheet from 2016. We've got 2017, which was a different one. It changed. 2018, 2019. And if you look, we're in a different program, more than one. So never feel like you're going to arrive. You're going to get there. Before we were this cooperative, we were a nonprofit. And, so I just want to remind you all that it will always change. And when you do fail, that the model for failing is always, for me, who I ran 4 or 5 different nonprofits in the past, you learn from the failures more so than from the successes. So always remember that. Don't beat yourself up. And we're all in this together in these classes. So don't feel that, you may be the one next time in 5 years to go through another program again if you have new members to teach you the same bare bones. And it's frustrating to keep going over the same stuff over and over again, but it's humbling at the same time because no one has arrived.
Right. That's all good stuff. Right. And your role is to see to it that in your presentation, one thing, but in real life, again, see it through, and that you just need to make sure that, what you are, you're connecting to not only the possibilities of the business itself, but also connecting to your true passion. I think that's important, making sure that your passion's aligned with the work that you're doing, the numbers that we're talking about today, the finances. That's something that, every business has to pay attention to. But, financial viability is going to be one of the things that the judges look at, but financial viability and sustainability would be something certainly that you all will be looking at every single last day, being concerned about and wanting to see it as a way of, just the way you do business, the way that you do collective business, you're working together. We're all, supporting what you're doing. Okay, very good. Thank you. So we have our next cooperative. I believe it's Southern Bee.
Lisa, are you able to pull up the presentation? I mean, the slides.
Yep. Give me 1 second. Sorry,
Crenshaw, then we have Crenshaw, and then Parable of the Sower. Your last one. Okay. And while you're doing that, Southern Bee, Crenshaw, you can start if you have slides or something to share, you can start getting yours ready so that we can go directly to the next one, okay? Lisa, do you want us to come back to you?
Yeah, that would be helpful because I have to
Okay.
log into Canva.
All right, Crenshaw, are you ready?
Hey, yeah, I'm driving. I could,
You still driving?
yeah, I'm driving, but I wouldn't be able to share right now. But I can go over everything that I have, like vocally, I could.
Okay. How about Parable of the Sower? Let me ask first. Okay.
Yeah, we can go.
We don't want you to put yourself in danger. We want you to concentrate solely on that road.
Yeah.
All right.
If you
Thank
can pull up ours, I think
Oh,
you
the
saw
one
the
you
note
sent?
in the chat.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And I'm still getting over, I don't know if y'all heard, we got exposed to some pesticides. So if my voice goes out, I'll put a cough drop in it.
I
But I
did
just want
hear
y'all to know.
about that, but I'm like, how in the world did that happen?
Yeah, this is my presentation that we have to be on a chat some other time.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness, that is terrible.
Yeah, all of us got affected. But yeah, did you
Wait a
see
minute.
the Excel sheet?
Yeah, I saw it this
Okay,
morning. I was looking at it
thank you.
earlier. You didn't actually put it in the chat. You said it to me earlier,
Yeah, I
right?
sent it to you, but I put a note in the chat. Can you pull that up on the screen?
Oh, okay, yeah,
Thank you.
all right. Sure. I saw that. Here we go.
Okay, thanks.
All right, just.
President.
All right, so let me go to your tab. You want me to go to,
Thank you.
let's see. Trying to move things
Okay.
around here. Is this what you want?
Okay, so here we are. This is the Parable Store. And as you all know, we have many products, but to start, we're only doing 3. And just to start off, just because of why that is, we are a land-based, intentional community cooperative, which makes it totally different. Land-based means we do time banking. Everyone gets free housing, free food, and time banking to become a member. So that is why we have so many products, because we are using that model of liberation, which is how we used to live in villages in barter systems. So the first product that you see here is our Healer Responders. And so all these products we've done. So that is why we're putting these here for you. That means for $25 for each person that used to come into our office, since we don't have our land, they would pay $25 at the door. As you can see, over months, we would have 7, let's say, hypothetically, in January all the way to December, 57. And you can see our total cost of goods, which is $15, because our transportation is the thing, since we don't have the land, meaning that is the biggest expense that most people would have to pay in the cooperative to get to where we're doing this now. And the setup, because again, when you have your own land, also, it allows you to have brick and mortar, your warehouse, your everything that you would need already there. And so those are the expenses that we saw as quick of per month. Our materials, cost of time banking and wage, which is another thing most people would have to learn about, time banking and what does that mean when people are in not a commune, but a intentional community. If there's over 2,200 in the United States and internationally. And so we are learning from a group that's been around for 50 years. They have 100 time bankers or people that live there, just like we will be having. And they sell, like, what do you call it, hammocks to Pier 1 Imports. That's what they're known for. So everybody works at that. They don't get paid, but they also get their house and all that. And so the next, if you can scroll down.
Okay.
For the second one product, you will see our second product again, which we have done, is the Land Corps. And our price is $5,000. That's for individual organizations. We have 37,000 organizations that have worked with us before we were cooperative. That means before we were doing this work, we had 37,000 members, and they always gave us funding, even usually for free. And the reason is because of the reputability of our organization. So $5,000 is what an organization would pay. Some would give $2,000. That way they would allow other people to come in their place. And if the organization doesn't come in t-shirts and come in paint and whatever else during Land Corps, which is a month long. As you can see, for $5,000, that's 10 people per month that we were trying to raise. So that means during the month of August, which is when Land Corps begins, all these numbers, meaning 12 months, right? We can raise the $5,000 so that when August comes, all that income comes for that particular month. Our labor and staff we have a stipend that we give people even though they are time banking, and that's 1,000, as you can see. So that's why each month you see that calculated for the revenue, but you also see the lease space. Again, why land is important for us, because we are like Quilombos, Palenques, I think I talked many times about the Gullah Geechee, who we work with constantly. And so that's why we're land-based, and we put that percentage in per month to pay for that 1 month expense. The FICA, as well as the labor fees, you'll see as well. And then as you see, the 2 extra months have 5 as a quantity, and that's gone down for a little bit there. And number 3, excuse me. The third product that I will be exhibiting just for today is our Black Life Alert.
Oh, by the way, it's been 3 minutes. I'm sorry I didn't let you know, but continue, please.
Okay. Black I said Black Life Alert. This is the wrong one. It's supposed to be Black Trauma Anonymous. Black Trauma Anonymous is basically, we have it in 3 states now. It's almost like Alcoholic Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. So each group is independent in 50 states for Alcoholic Anonymous or not, Alcoholic Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. And so we will be doing Black Trauma Anonymous. So you first got to get the training. We give you the pamphlets and you're self-sufficient.
Your
The
audio,
reputability of AA and NA and CODA speak for themselves. We will, but basically we just share for the materials, the labor, and the cost of goods, which is $10. And this is the cheapest thing, but it has the potential to be in every 50 state. We've done it only in 3 states because we really want to wait till we get on the land to really push it out to the groups that really have been asking for it. And if you can go to the next page, year 1. And so you can see our Healer Responders land and the Black Trauma, and then the cost of goods there, and then our expenses, and employment, the basic things at the bottom there. If you can scroll to the bottom. Yes, we also have a vehicle as well as other things that we share because we want people to feel that they can have access to those things. There's our EBI TBA. That's what I was talking about earlier, just to price up the net income per month and then give for the whole year. And if you can go to the 3rd year, it shows the difference, right? We made a profit there. The 3rd year shows again, not only our percentage, 65% of the gross margin, and then our expenses. As you can see, it talks about putting money aside for the land, but we get patronage, as y'all know, so we put that in there. And next page, break even. Next page. And so our break even shows you that we've got 84% of our average growth margin. Can you go back?
Yeah, it's break even here. Here we go. Do you see it?
So our growth, thank you. Our growth margin for the month brings us that. So we do make a profit. Our biggest product would be our first one, right? Healer Responders, because that's every Saturday. We open up our doors for $25 a year. A person. But as you can see, the Land Corps only needs 1 unit. It's less work. It's more time, but we love that one the most. And then as you can see, the percentages speak for themselves. Of the percentage of those sold is 10%. The Land Corps is 50%. And we have an average gross of our margin, which is 84%. And the flyer in the back, if you can scroll down, the flyers at the bottom show you what we've used as publicity in the past. That's our Healer Responders. It tells you a little bit of poetry right on there of how we advertise this. The Day in the Life Land Corps is how we received our Biden Award last year from Biden for the Inflation Reduction Act, which is called Justice 40. We're one of 40 in the whole US. And then the last one shows you what Black what
Mhm.
Black Life Alert looks like.
Mhm.
Check. Thank you. Any
Thank you.
feedback or questions?
There was a lot of information in the 5 minutes. Okay, feedback, questions?
Any feedback? Yes, it was a lot of information, but hopefully
This
I
is
didn't
great
take too much time.
information. No, this was good.
I don't have any feedback, but I do have some questions. So Miss Alita, for how did y'all determine, this is something that would help us, like we're not here yet. So I'm asking these questions as somebody who's like trying to also
Yeah,
like understand. So for the certain cost that you have, so example for like your cost of goods sold, the COGS, how did you determine like the cost of the materials and
Sure.
then the labor and time too?
Yeah, so I think for me, the biggest part to answer this is that whole thing, like we said, is knowing that when you fail, you do it right? When you fail, you get to make it up. And so we've done these products and services since 2016. So make sure that you understand that you may have something at once, which is an educated assumption. But over
Mhm.
time is when you make that educated guess. I'm a scientist, right? From the National Institute of Health. So over time, that educated guess, which is a hypothesis, becomes true or not. So same thing
Mhm.
with this. Don't be afraid to fail. And that way you adjust your numbers. And that's the whole thing about this business world, which is why I love us coming from an African ethos, is that bartering is how we do it in Africa. Asusumas and las sociedades is how we trust that we don't have to be accurate totally. Although the numbers speak for themselves, you can mess up and feel you can adjust those numbers. So ours were from trying on the process. Like when people came in the door and we did it for free, that was great,
Mhm.
but we didn't make a lot of money in our little bucket. Then we
Mhm.
started $5. Then we started charge $10. Then we saw that some people were giving $50 and $200 just because they liked us.
Mhm.
So adjusting it over time, don't be afraid to stick with one number, try it out, and then make those adjustments. On this Excel sheet that she gives us, those numbers change no matter what number you put in. And our Excel sheets that I took my numbers from, we have 24 pages. Can you imagine? I put one number in there different, all 24 pages change. So just make sure you have something like this from Cynthia and Kristen where you can adjust your name changes anytime you want, and that's okay. Try out the process so that way you feel confident, especially during pandemics and elections. Things are going to change. So be soft and don't be so harsh on yourselves is what I would really want to say. If that hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, so what I hear you saying is that you really just took some guesses and it was a lot of trial and error to really get, and like you said, like because y'all been around for a while, it just sounds like it was like, let's try this out, and then that helps you decide like what worked and didn't work
Yeah, and
and
then
how to move
also another
forward.
way you can do it for there's some competition, right? Like for us, because I'm in CODA, I'm not in Alcoholic Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. Actually, my partner has been before. But what that did is allow me to look at other competition when she had us to do competitive groups. You
Yeah.
can look and see how much, that laundromat is charging in comparison to where you live. Are we in the same range as far as economics? Is it people that are higher upper class or middle class that live here? Can I compare what other someone else is doing if they live in a comparable community? And so that's what we did. We looked at NAAA, took their figures, and adjusted it to ours. So that's also another way to do it. But yes, the hypothesis is always first.
Yep,
Thank you.
all good information.
Okay, SD is ready.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your presentation, Lita. I
Yes,
think
that
that
was great.
certainly we can benefit, from what you said because of the experience you've had in a trial and error that you've been where everyone else is here as well. And this is a process where we will, it's a continual process. We improve, as we go on. So we have Southern B's already ready, and is Lisa presenting or is Raquel?
It'll be like between the two of us. So
We start
actually
with
what would
Raquel.
be
Well,
better
you know
is
what? You know what I'm thinking? I know you may not like this, and I'm saying you not like this, but I think you'll love it. Let's take a little break, okay? We haven't done that, and I'll give you some time to, did I hear you say thank you, Lisa?
no, I said okay.
Okay. All right, let's take a little break. Let's do 3 minutes. We'll, come back and hear our last two, and then we'll move on to governance and all. But thank you very much so far. It's tough, but hey, now you get a chance to decompress a little bit, take a break, 3 minutes, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, so we can hear now from Southern Bee Collective.
All right, we're gonna start with the Canva presentation that we put together for another occasion, but it also fits. I think it'll guide our conversation a little bit better. So who we are, a BIPOC birth worker owned co-op located in the Carolinas, anchoring, providing culturally congruent support to BIPOC birthing families and BIPOC birth workers, supporting those families. I like this quote. We like that quote from class a couple of weeks ago. The right question is not how everyone can have equal power. It's rather how everyone can be powerful. And I think it really speaks to not only how we at the Bee Collective want to elevate the families that we're working with, but also elevate the birth workers that we are working with as well. All right, so we have, we're calling them ARMS, but we're looking at 3 major income streams, and that's through providing direct doula support, providing other support to families, such as a meal prep and postpartum support, and then also through education. So the doula support will look like offering billing and marketing to support to those doulas and essentially admin support. The support to clients will look like providing full service doula support during the perinatal birth and postpartum period, as well as lactation support, things like meal planning, prep and support. And then again, the education it will be offering will not just focus on education for the doulas and perinatal professionals, but also for parents and pregnancy education as well. So again, we aim to solve the issue of not just increasing access to culturally competent BIPOC birth workers to serve BIPOC families in the Carolinas by providing direct support during the perinatal period, education, and connecting to resources. Our goal is also to offer support to new and seasoned birth workers by offering billing administration and educational training and support. And essentially, we want to be able to offer wage parity to these birth workers. So we will have some membership tiers, which we'll go into in the next part of our presentation. So the birth workers will be able to choose their level of commitment and a variety of membership tiers to meet their needs. So if they're just interested in participating in some of the training opportunities, they'll have a membership level for that. And then if they're interested in actually joining a co-op as a worker owner member, they'll have some membership tiers for that as well. All right, so that's the end, the let us know what you think part, but we're gonna ask you to hold that until we get to the end of the financial piece. So while Lisa's pulling that up, this was really an opportunity for us to actually put some of the things that we were thinking into place. And I appreciate what you said, Alita, just before about really kind of experimenting and seeing what works. So we had these numbers in mind of what we thought would be affordable and fair for asking doulas to pay various membership fees and fees for services and things like that. And when we got to actually plot them out in the chart, we got to see maybe how unrealistic some of those things are. So the first thing that we're looking at is recruiting and build. And we also had a lot of questions come up around how we will be tracking these services. So the first one we have is recruiting and billing. So we'll be providing advertising, marketing, and billing support to clients. And we determined that we would charge about 15% per client to doulas to provide that service, assuming that doulas are getting paid around $3,000 for full support. And these are not just assumptions, but these are just kind of looking at one situation. So most birth doulas, or assuming that birth doulas are going to be getting paid $3 to provide that full spectrum of support to a family. So what we got from that is the cost of that product or service that we will be offering is about $450. And we plotted that. So this shows the income that we will potentially generate across the first year. And again, we're looking at only serving 3 and 5 clients a month. So we're looking at keeping our caseload low, knowing that we're basically planning for a ramp up. So we do want to start out low with what our capability is, and strategic, kind of steady. Our initial thoughts were that we would not have anybody full-time. And basically what we got from this chart is that those assumptions are correct, that we may start out with essentially 1 or 1.5 full-time employees, which is not just one person, but they could be 2 or 3 people who are only half-time. The next product or service that we had was professional development memberships. And this is, again, another place where we got to test that assumption. So we thought $300 would be a fair price to ask doulas to pay for membership to have access to these trainings. But then again, when we plotted this cost and not just looked at the revenue, but got to really thinking about the cost of providing those services. So these trainings aren't going to actually be provided for free. We're going to want to pay the doulas and pay the educators that are leading the training. There are going to be supply and material costs here that, as you can see, aren't even accounted for. So we do need to kind of go back to the drawing board and think through this product or service a little bit more as well to see how we can make it beneficial for everybody. And then the next product or service we're calling client education and community engagement. So we do already, the Southern Bee Collective already does community engagement events, right? And they provide client education, so that perinatal and postpartum education. Insurance companies do pay for those things. Right now, we aren't always billing the insurance companies for those things, but through this model, the assumption would be that we're billing insurance where appropriate for all of these services to be able to recoup this cost, estimation of about $65. Again, and that's just the average of cost of the variety of these different services. And anticipating that we will be providing about 50 of these services each month throughout the year. So as you can see, we have some kind of steady revenue streams, some things that are going to be consistent and that stand out outside the doula support. But like I said, what stood out most to me was that we really need to spend some more time thinking through what's actually going to be realistic, not just what's going to be fair to the community, but what's going to be realistic, and get a clear budget so that we can know what the ask will be. So we even entertained having some strategic partnerships and alliances that may even be willing to essentially pay for staff during the startup year and things like that. But we do need to have a dollar amount so we know what to ask these people for.
And
Did
just to add to what Raquel said, is like this all what we do have here also came out of our meeting with Kristen, who really helped us think about, which is why I was asking about like, how did you come up with the numbers, Miss Alita, for like cost, material cost? Because that's where we really got stuck at. But all of this that we shared came out of like our support meeting with Kristen, which is where we started to realize what is fair versus what is realistic was another big thing that came up for us, because we had our prices lower for all of these things initially, and then Kristen was like, well, let's do some, like, let's chunk that, like, let's crunch some numbers and see how that works. And so that also, just being able to be in conversation with somebody who understands this type of stuff a little more also helped us make some decisions on like our guesstimations.
Yeah, that was hugely helpful, being able to spend the time actually talking through this, because when I say my eyes just crossed the first time and I probably closed them after that.
Yeah, so that's our
That was good.
presentation.
Good way to present. All right, so that was good. Thank you very much for sharing. Any questions? We have about 2 seconds to ask a question. If we're going by the time, but I think this is so important. It is so important for us to have these discussions. Any, what questions? Okay, first attempt in learning is to fail. Yes, right. Okay. Let's see. Are you still driving, Asia? Is Asia with us? Yes. Are you still driving? Okay, I'm not hearing from Asia right now.
Yeah, I'm in the car, but I'm gonna try and briefly read through everything. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no,
It's
no, if you're driving, do not read through. Please do not. Do not. I mean, if you're at your destination before we leave, you know, today, then you will have an opportunity to present. Beyond that, I think we shall just go ahead and we'll move on. Did I see Ms. Marilyn join us? You sure did. Well, welcome. I didn't think you'd be able to join us this evening.
Yeah,
So
I didn't either. Thank you so much. Our meeting went shorter than what I anticipated, but I was so glad that I'm able to make it and so glad to see your face. How are you? I think about you since I'm glad you're well, and I'm glad to see you here today.
oh, it's good to be here. Always good to be here. So
Yes.
I'm doing well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. So again, great job, everybody, for the presentations. And there's something to learn. It's something to be concerned. I think the I'll send a note. I'll send a note to a particular team. Now what we're going to do is transition to a different portion of our co-op development. Now we've already gone through teams. You know, if we think in terms of our co-op canvas and our co-op journey so far, we discussed teams, the importance of having the skilled people, you know, on the teams. We've also discussed the idea of having, you know, proper structures, setups for the team. So the structure we're going to talk about today is something I think that's very important. And certainly if you've set up your teams already, you know, we think about who's going to be doing what, you know, for one, and how will the team look? And there are different, I guess you'd say, worldviews of how we look at organizations in general. But if we think of organizations, we know that usually they're built for efficiency and they're built for discipline. We think about hierarchies in organizations. Lots of times, traditional organizations, we think of hierarchies. And with that, we also have some implicit assumptions about people and the work. For instance, my son is, again, going through a health crisis. He went through one this past week. His employer, he's in sales, by the way. So he was due to get a bonus this week. So he's all last week, even though he's in the hospital, not necessarily sure of, how things would go for him. He's thinking about, oh, I know these guys are just gonna mess over my bonus because I know that I missed a couple of days and I won't be able to make my goal. And, and so today he called frustrated. Yes, they're messing with my bonus. And I'm thinking, wow, that is so messed up that he would even have to think about that. He was upset. He said, they don't care about me at all. They didn't ask how I was doing. They knew I was in the hospital. And, but there are certain implicit assumptions that organizations sometimes have about even employees. So what do you think could be what some of these assumptions are? I mean, what are they, as it relates to employees? What are some of the assumptions
I think that employers sometimes think that employees aren't really sick and that they don't want to come to work, right? That they aren't really invested. So then they take those things away. But, I think about that's really terrible. And I hate to hear how companies put profits over people. But I've also enjoyed hearing how when organizations choose not to do that, they see how beneficial it is. Like when people take on practices around having unlimited time off and unlimited leave, they find that people actually come to work, not so much more, but that, they aren't calling off as much. Whereas when you have very strict leave policies, then they're having a lot of people calling off and not coming in. And then even thinking about rewarding people beyond performance, then people always show up and are great, as opposed to I think the alternative thinking is that if you reward people when they perform well and put these super high expectations that they'll do well, but those only create stressful, intense environments.
Right. So when we look at organizations, I'm just going to share this with you. A different worldview, I guess you'd say, and the impact. Here are some of the assumptions in addition to what you shared. Employees are lazy, they must be monitored, not capable of seeing the big picture, and capable of being responsible. And the main money is the main motivator. So we look at organizations as machines. Then we think about the people who run those organizations in certain ways. And the traditional way of looking at some of the key breakthroughs that have occurred under this worldview would be innovation and accountability and meritocracy. However, if we can imagine organizations differently, as a living system, and we've shared some of this before, and that's for sure, some of us and some of you are living this. If we look at the worldview of an organization as a living system, where every member of the organization senses opportunities and tensions and can take action. So we understand there's an interconnectivity. Implicit assumptions here would be, we trust employees, we believe they can be responsible. There is this collective wisdom that's better than any one viewpoint. And definitely the purpose goes beyond the bottom line, because we could find that through the purpose, and working collectively, we can tap into the imagination that can answer so many questions, cure so many ills, and still, you know, be productive in the ways that really matter, you know, in life. So the key breakthroughs here would be self-management, wholeness, and evolutionary purpose. All of this, again, is what's been presented. You can find in Frederick Laloux's Reinventing Organizations, and it's the reference that I believe you also made, Raquel, in your presentation. One of the quotes that you liked so much was from his work. Now, when we are thinking about these different types of organizational structures, we also think in terms of, you know, how we manage. I'm trying to figure out why okay. Okay. All righty. I'll fix that. Stop sharing. And I see Reddy has also joined us. And that's good to see you, Reddy. All right.
Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings to you as well. Okay, so an organization as a machine does produce, whereas the living organization creates. Organization as a machine is a system as discrete components to the system versus a living organization that's more organic and interdependent. And an organization that's a machine does as it is told versus the living organization learns and adapts. Organization as machine, purpose is to do, and the living organization, the purpose is to serve. Organization as a machine predicts and controls, whereas the organization that's living, that senses and responds. Organizational as a machine is transactional, and the living organization is relational. Different types of organizations, two different types, two different structures, okay? So what I'd like for you to do is think about this. Think about, you know, this question for one. Hopefully you can see this. It's better. Okay, so our worldview helps us make sense of the world. And it happens, wait a minute. Yeah, it also shapes and limits what's possible. So spend some time getting clear about why cooperative management, also known as democratic management or participatory management, is important to you and how your co-op team leads the business. And so we can look at it by completing the statement. Cooperative management practices will help us effectively lead the business because, however you want to fill in the blank there. So again, just take a minute and we just shout out some things. Just shout out some things and I'll go ahead and write in this section the things that you shout out.
It creates shared power.
Because they create.
It creates shared power.
Okay, shared power, okay.
The international global perspective. International global perspective. So often we are very Americanized, thinking that our ethos is the best. Most cooperatives that has succeed for longer times have been in international, rather than sustainable, but also the international global perspective, meaning not first world, but a third world view. They're more democratic from what I've seen.
Okay, thank you.
I would say shared expertise. So the wealth of expertise on the team.
Oh.
Okay. I like that.
I want to say, because we're African American, going back to the village concept. It takes a village to raise a child. We say that a lot, but do we practice it? I think that African perspective of who we are as African Americans, we're going back to the ways we were before we were on these slave ships that brought us here. So I want to really bring on the fact that's why this is an African group, because we're trying to go back to our roots, the African perspective.
I am seeing
Second that.
I am definitely seeing that as I listen to what's happening, especially with some of our younger people as well. I am amazed at the number of folk who are going into agriculture. You know, they're wanting to do more of the community gardening, and they're wanting to farm, and they're wanting to get back to the basics and do some of the work that we, you know, like you said, we came from, you know, just reconnecting.
Coming back out of Babylon, I say.
Ooh, yes.
Somebody put economic empowerment in the chat. Crystal put economic empowerment in the chat.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
And it's wild because I feel like it's happening in real time. Like we are experiencing this versus being in spaces where it's only in theory. Like we can reach out to one another and reach out to folks that's doing this.
Right.
Like this is the time.
This is the time.
Legacy.
Ooh.
Legacy.
Oh, thank you for putting that. Yes.
Yes, indeed. Okay. So our worldview helps us make sense of the world. The world doesn't make much sense right now in lots of ways. But so going back to, again, the collective wisdom, I think that's extremely important, you know, for the times that we're in as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Can I add one piece? Can I add one piece, Ms. Cynthia? I think also, you know, from, you know, in Houston, we're thinking about cooperation as therapeutic and healing practices. And so does, you know, Ms. Cynthia, National Association of Black Cooperators, right?
Right.
That cooperation is a way, and participatory management, which is a system or practice that's in line with the values and principles of cooperation, is how we heal, you know, ourselves and really repair the ongoing trauma that we're experiencing, right? So I think also, you know, really, and I think we have to collect data on this, right? We got to collect data on how cooperation is supporting people's well-being, not just the business as the thing that it does, but how it operates, and even in the building of cooperative businesses, how does it support well-being? And I think Amaha and Corporation Dayton was spot on to talk about the cooperative, the food cooperative as a public health intervention. And I think we should talk about cooperation, the behavior, not the business model, but the behavior as a public health intervention, as a healing and restorative therapeutic practice.
Okay.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe. Oh.
I noticed that. Thank you so much for that, because that's powerful. It's right. Miss Marilyn, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I did. And I'm listening to all of this, and this is what I've been saying all day. I've been in meetings all day. But this word keeps popping up in my mind, and it just popped up again on my spirit. Humanitarianism. We've gotten away so far away from the human spirit. And I just think that is so vitally important to bring that in. We caught up in this the bureaucracy of organizations, of businesses, of running companies, but we forget that we are human beings and we are not machines, because human beings make machines, right? And what happens with that? Machines break down, people break down. So we got to go back to the fact of humanitarianism.
Right.
And that really, I thank you, Miss Marilyn, because that is why I believe, since Trump, just if we were to talk about what's happening to us, why all of us are in this call probably, when Trump got into office, he talked about going back to whatever the what's the thing, the slogan they say?
Make
I can't
America
even-
great again.
Make America great again, which is he wants to go back to that slave labor where we were factories. You know, the facto in
Yes.
Savannah is the lower facto, upper facto, because we were the factories. And look at us now. We are becoming humanitarian by saying we are up against the white,
Yes.
you know, killing machines that they want us to be. They want us to go back to work. We saw them, how they want to put us into these places to make money for them and profit for them. And look
Yeah.
at us. We're
Yeah.
going back to something that's natural of our motherlands. Our ancestors are truly happy with us because we are seeing that this system that they have painted for us to do business as usual is not for us.
Right.
I thank you.
Reset.
Yeah, that was Sister. Thank you for saying humanitarianism, because that's a big one.
Thank
It
you.
is. It's huge. It's good. Good. All right. So thank you all for sharing this. I have some other questions for you too. So what happens when we make a shift from viewing the organization or a co-op as a machine to be programmed to viewing it as a living being to be developed, nurtured, and matured? And how does a co-op cultivate the conditions for an organization to support growth, learning, adaptation, and development? So I know you made some of the same responses, perhaps, especially for the first part. However, think about it. How does a co-op cultivate the conditions for those things to happen for an organization?
Well, let me start with this, because I think we always talk about solidarity all the time. Solidarity. Are we just using that as because it's something fashionable to say? I think we really need to practice that more. Practice what we preach. You know, I think that as well as empathy, we need to bring all these components into whatever we do in life, our co-ops, our businesses, whatever we choose to do in life. Those things are very important, and we need to continue to practice those things.
Okay. Okay.
I think also what happened with us, we started a cooperative. We were a nonprofit, but we were doing something called a University Sin Fronteras, University Without Walls. And so what happens in that process is something called a round robin. It's not about who's the most educated, because we had a retired judge, we had a professor, but we had also kids that weren't even, grade school age. And then we had some homeless and LGBT, and even people who were in the projects. And so
Yes,
when we
love that.
decided to do this, everyone went in a round robin. So there wasn't no big eye popcorning because you have more knowledge. And we realized that we needed everyone's voice.
I
And that's
love
how
that.
we knew we were going to be a cooperative, because we didn't want to just hear from the professor and the judge and those that had good paying jobs. We wanted to hear from the young people and those that were suffering, because their wisdom was sometimes more than the wisdom of the books. And so that's what did it for us. That was year 2014 that we were doing University of Sin Fronteras. And then we did a People's Movement Assembly, and people came to free Marissa Alexander. I went to the United Nations for that. And that's when we changed from the CEO, which was just about who can take a position, to knowing that we needed everyone's wealth and knowledge, and everyone should be a worker owner.
I'm so glad you said that, because I preach that all the time, and you just gave me validity on what I've been saying. It's not about being the smartest person in the room or the brightest star in the sky. If we talk about being inclusive, then that's what we need to be. It could be from the judges or professors, or from somebody that's even homeless. We all have a voice, and we all are important. And oftentimes in these circles such as this, people don't step up, as you say, because they feel like they don't matter, their word doesn't matter. And this is what I strive to get rid of, because we all are special. We got a gift, and we are important, and we need to realize that and stop stigmatizing people because they don't have a degree or whatnot, because God made us all, and he made us all in his image. And if anything that God makes, he does not make any junk. So we all are important. And I'm so glad that you just brought that up. Thank you so much for that.
Well, that's also important as we're looking and developing as a team, for sure. I mean, we have to keep those things in mind.
Yes.
That everybody has something that that they bring to the team. If they bring something to the team, you know, accept it. You know, that's it. Otherwise, you know, we're not, and I'm saying bring something hopefully positive to the team, which I'm sure, you know, if not, then we can work through that too. That's why we have certain things that we can put into to place as well, where we are addressing, you know, if you're having difficulties within the team, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. And we all have to look at ourselves in terms of what we are contributing, and hopefully contributing things to the progress of the team. And when we're not, you know, again, there are things that we can put in place and systems we can put in place that help address that, you know.
I said, by kind of in the spirit of the conversation, is by allowing space for everybody to show up as their true selves. Right. So no, allowing space for everybody to show up as their true selves and their fullest selves, whatever they're bringing. And I think that really allows space for growth, because if you're just showing up as who you are, then there's space for everybody to grow.
Okay.
Everybody to, you know, say, hey, I have this need. I got a chance to be with the Be Collective this weekend. And I'm always grateful of how great this entire organization is about just meeting everybody where they are. And you need this support? Okay, let's see how we can get that to you. And they show up that same way with the folks that they work with and with the clients that they serve.
It's excellent. Excellent. All right. Another question. Norman Wolf invites us to ask ourselves the following questions. What is the soulful purpose? What is your co-op soulful purpose? Why does it exist? What would the world be missing without your particular co-op? I know you've dealt with some of this before and you've addressed it to some extent. I think maybe one of the first sessions you may have even been asked that question. What is the soulful? Maybe you were asked that for yourself. What is your soulful purpose? What is the soulful purpose for your co-op?
Well, for me, I can say when I got involved with the laundry co-op and heard how it got started, because I was with it from the very beginning, is to serve, to supply a need, a very much needed need, and to help empower, elevate, and give others the confidence to step up and be a part of something that's bigger than themselves.
Okay. Okay.
So for the Be Collective, again, supporting families through one of the biggest transitions in their lives, and then also supporting those that support them.
Okay, supporting families through one of the biggest transitions of their lives.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to say this one for ready. Sabwana. Ours is Sabwana, which is an African word that means I see you. We're not just business people. We are all owners. And so when I say I see you ready, Sabwana, that means there is no me without the other worker owners in my groups. We will not exist. Sabwana.
How do you spell
I
that?
said ready.
How do you spell that? Sabwana?
Saobona. Sabwana.
B-O-N-A.
Saobona. Yeah, I think Sabwana. I think there may be a W in there, but I can't
I'll have
remember.
to say that to my grandson. Actually, my grandson, he's just a little over a year old, but every time I see him, I say, I see you. And I do the.
Yes.
And
that's a good
he
one. Yes, I
smiles.
see you.
I mean, every time I say it, he smiles. He is, you know, he's huge dimples and he just breaks out smiling when I say, I see you. I don't care what mood he's in. And I will even use the gestures and he just breaks out with this huge smile. So I have to remember Sabwana.
Sabwana, yeah. We were doing Land Corps and I said it at a thing we did. And that was the first time Reddy came to our Land Corps. And he was so intrigued by that word, right, Reddy? And so I love when we use words from Africa too, you know, because it takes us out of the English language. But
Right.
yeah, I love the example that you gave of your son, because I love to say that to children.
Oh, wow.
Because they understand what you're saying.
Right, they do. They really do. I mean, he's only like 15 months old and he's just beaming, you know. He's not even that old. I think he's 13. Yeah, he's 13 months old. But at any rate, this is good. This is all good. I'm looking at the time. We only have 11 minutes left, but I did want to pick up on what you said. I think, Raquel, I missed that in the part of it, supporting families through one of the biggest transitions in their lives. And I think you added something that, and I just.
And the people who support them. So basically the doulas.
Okay,
Right.
okay. Gotcha. Them. Okay, and there's some folk, you know, who we haven't heard from yet, so let's hear from, you know, a few others of you. Tracy, I don't think I've heard from you, and maybe Asia, Morgan. What would the world look like in 3, 5, 8 years if the organization's soulful purpose was more fully realized? Notice I said, what would the world look like? 3, 5, 8 years. What's that? Ready? Did you say something?
I would say more providers we have way more providers, more people to care for children, and more mothers that don't have jobs can have better income chances, and employment increase. And it is our project is community based, so I would say a better community.
Okay.
They would know more about each other.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Think about a soulful purpose. Are you all still with us? Asia, are you at a place now where you can talk?
I think she had responded in the chat like I did at first too, and some of the stuff.
Okay.
And I just said mine.
Okay. Oh, I see. I see. Communities. Oh my gosh. Communities in the store, enhance skill, forgotten in our culture to teach our youth. That's what I get for not checking my chat. Okay. Like it's collective financial and economics. 1 minute. Okay. Okay. Wait a minute. Okay, I was looking at Grace's comment about shameless plug, y'all. I do work to support small Black, Indigenous, and people of color businesses to create liberated businesses that center these ethos structurally and culturally. So please hit me up if you want to do this work together. How about that? Hit her up for that. By truly making space. Okay, we have that, everything. So I think if people you all are responding, maybe not in verbally, but everything is positive because all it creates is an opportunity to learn something. So this is all good. This is really great. What I wanted to touch on then also for this evening is just the idea of okay. We've pretty much gone through this, some of the basic assumptions and norms of evolutionary organizations, you know, around trust, information and decision-making, responsibility and accountability. All this is in your book, by the way. Equal worth, safe and caring workplace, overcoming separation, learning, relationships and conflict. You've covered, you know, much of that work, and much of that also touches on the difference between governance and management as well. We can look at some of the different structures that we have for putting together our organizations. It's kind of interesting though, but you know, because if you're talking about going to the way we used to do things, you know, as we put some more light in it, as African Americans, as Black folk, we can go back to our roots. That's wonderful. That's great. And not everybody's going to want to go back to their roots, you know, because they're so caught up into this system that has made them feel secure, that's made them feel like they've maybe come to some success, had some success, or at least what they perceive to be success. I've achieved this particular, I'm on this rung of the ladder, and if I'm here, that means all is good. And then I'm going to be recognized for my achievements. I'm going to be rewarded for my achievements until you're not. That's the only thing. So what do you see then, the differences between management and governance? What would be the difference in your mind?
I think I love this question. The managerial ways have been really given to us, and I say this because of how America capitalism has been started, right? Meaning there is a way that they teach you to have best practices of business. If you're watching Poor Daddy, Good Daddy, Poor Daddy, whatever that book is, and then
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
yeah, there is a way that's very white male dominated. Okay. And for me, that is important to see, even how they have gone into Africa to colonialize, so that those best practices are taught away from what African 54 countries may have used to do, and so some that were successful now who still have to pay France is because their best practice is managerial. And then the other component of what you're saying, governance, is what I believe our countries in Africa really were, which is why I think we're going back to that. It was a structure where everyone believed in the eldership of the elders are there, the village mentality of the young, and how the practices, just like Native Indigenous, is I love to talk to our cooperative about how the Indigenous say, if the elder's not finished speaking, we will go past 5 o'clock. We're usually in a 9 o'clock, 5 to 5 frame. That means they can go to 2 o'clock in the morning. And I've seen it, the Oneida Nation and other nations. It's governance on how they believe is equilibrium to earth and nature. And so I know I'm going too far in there, so I'm gonna stop. But to me, it really has to do with what ways, for us, why we want to be on land. So we're not in this 9 to 5 practice, because sometimes your worker on cooperative may have to go out of those 9 to 5 structures. Sometimes because we are the owners, we may do more. And I do believe most people say that they do more in their own business because we love it. It's not a job. It's a way of life, a philosophy. So I'm sorry to be long-winded. I'm stopping now.
No. That's, you make all good points. It's just like with anything. There's a passion for it. If there's the buy-in for it, then certainly that's, you think that time takes on a different meaning. It's like, just like right now, we are constrained somewhat, with the time. We have 3 minutes left. And yet, maybe there are times when you believe we need to carry on with the conversation beyond 8 o'clock. But, hey, that's what we're doing right now. But to your points about governance, yeah, it can take on different forms. We have a lot to learn from the third world. That's what we have, a lot to learn, I think, and appreciate. And a lot of folk are beginning to appreciate what's there more. Because I know when I visit even other countries, they're like, why are you in a hurry? Why are you rushing? Why, it's always like, we're on this, and we have to be like machines almost in order to prove our worth, to prove that we're doing a job, or that we're checking all the boxes. But if we look at the differences between management and governance, we also know that when you hear the word governance, perhaps it usually means a role that you play in terms of the actual structure. We've already shared with you in the past this particular document, and I want to share it with you again and let you know that this is what you're going to be working on for next week, because I'm looking at the clock again. Okay, wait a minute, here we go. Here we go. All
And
right,
Miss Cynthia,
yes,
I want to say that I think this is an important topic that maybe doesn't get as much attention as the finances and other pieces. And I want to say that most of us are born into systems that we don't often question, right? And so part of this is a kind of uncovering and the discovering around systems, right? Because I think many groups still use majority rule, and a lot of these systems cooperatives have started off as cooperatives and lost their identity, right? And function like, traditional businesses. And so, I mean, not traditional business, but investor owned businesses. So I just want to say that I think this is worth like discussion and conversation, even in our co-ops, as we explore, we talk to people about, how have they been treated, or how have things been organized in a workplace, what has worked, what has not worked, right? And then to be slowly, because I just want to say, yes, a lot of people won't say, I don't know anything about the continent of Africa. You know what I mean? They're not. So I think we have to understand that for some people that will be rejected. But I think when we think about some practical fairness, like what was right, like what you said about your son. You didn't say anything about the continent and all that. You just said, like, this seems to be incredibly unfair, right? And just starting with that and helping people to see that the system has limits. Now, what we go to, okay, we'll be open, but we're just trying to say this system right here is not really working for our well-being, and it's not even efficient, and it's
right,
not even
right.
effective.
And the
So we
systems,
just do,
right, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, we just do that, right? Look at the amount of bankruptcies, look at the amount of failed businesses, look at how you have to pump subsidies into these main industries. If we just go off on a business sense, we
Right.
know it's not doing very good. And then we can talk about the other pieces, some of us, right, from a cultural lens. So I'm just saying I'm aware of that too, because part of it is just saying this is not affect the business model, right? You can't be running around trying to control everybody and do all that, and we can't even function like that. We can't pay for it, right? So we got to have some peer management, or, self-management, because we can't even afford people to be managing everybody, right? So there's just some nuts and bolts of this thing that we can also talk about as why we need to think about governance and management in distinct ways. And I'm complete. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. And I'm cognizant of the time. I'm aware of that. So I'm just going to share this with you. You've seen this before, your co-op map. And then there is, you see the co-op governance part on the right-hand side. You've already looked at the team, co-op team. We looked up your co-op vision and mission. We spent some time on that. So governance and participatory management are what we're moving into now. And there's this also, do you all see this little map piece?
Yes,
Mapping your co-op governance?
yes.
You've seen this before, I know. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to view all of the different parts, but it's important that you do that and look at the part that says co-op governance, answering the questions. You'll get more into detail. So for your field work this week, we'd like for you to go ahead and get familiar with your co-op governance
Okay.
guide. Begin to fill out your co-op map as well. And I'm going to bring you back to this. Right. Well, I'm going to stop you. Fill out the co-op map, specifically the bylaws. It should be bylaws with an S section. Begin to make a plan to incorporate and take the next step administratively. All these details. And, excuse me, I did that. Continue interviewing and sharing your test prototype with potential customers. In other words, just keep talking to your customers as you move along. Next week, we'll do more of this. Work on your co-op canvas, learnings and insights. And then we just like for you to just continue working on your pitch. So I'm going to take all this out for now. And just leave this, and all this will be in your presentation that I will send you as well, okay? So what questions do you have before we leave today? Questions, comments, concerns? Again, I thank you very much for being so patient with me and all the changes and so forth. I'm glad to be back. And again, Kristen and I will post times, dates and times if you want to follow up with us on your financial story, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
week.
Thank y'all, everybody. Have a good night and a
You
good rest of your
too.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good
Thanks,
night, y'all.
everyone.
Good night.